You know this moment. You were deep asleep. You were gone. And then with no warning, no sound, no trigger you can identify, you're awake. You check the clock, it says 3 a.m. or 3:15 or 3:33. Always the same window, always the same hour, night after night. Now whether you interpret these patterns through the framework of numerology, synchronicity, or pure coincidence, the experience itself is real. Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today's episode is dedicated to the 3 a.m. frequency. Why you keep waking up at the same time. Before we begin, I want to invite you to join the Reality Revolution tribe. You can find the link in the description. I hold weekly group coaching sessions. You can find exclusive content, audiobooks, and meditations you can't find anywhere else. An amazing group of people working together to help you manifest your goals. You can find it at www.skool.com, skool.com/reality revolution. You know this moment. You were deep asleep. You were gone. And then with no warning, no sound, no trigger you can identify, you're awake, completely awake, as if someone flipped a switch inside your nervous system. You check the clock, it says 3 a.m. or 3:15 or 3:33. Always the same window, always the same hour, night after night after night. And for many of you, it's 3:33 specifically. The number 333 appears with a consistency that defies coincidence. You see it on the clock, on receipts, license plates. It follows you through your waking life, and it follows you into the night, and every time it appears, something in you registers it. A small jolt of recognition, a feeling that you are being signaled, a sense that something is trying to get your attention through the language of numbers. This is one of my most requested episodes. Brian, what's happening to me when I wake up at 3 a.m. every day? Now, whether you interpret these patterns through the framework of numerology, synchronicity, or pure coincidence, the experience itself is real. The pattern is registering in your awareness, and the fact that it appears most consistently at 3 a.m., the exact hour that every tradition we're about to explore identifies as the most significant cycle, is worth paying very close attention to. You've Googled this. You've asked friends. You've tried melatonin, sleep aids, white noise machines, blackout curtains, masks. You've changed your diet, adjusted your bedtime, cut caffeine, cut alcohol, and still 3 a.m. arrives and your eyes are wide open. You want to know why this keeps happening? I'm going to tell you, but the answer is far stranger, far older, and far more significant than anything you will find in a sleep article or medical journal, because this phenomenon sits at the intersection of ancient medicine, modern neuroscience, contemplative tradition, and something that has been understood by mystics for thousands of years but is only now beginning to be acknowledged by science. Something is happening at 3 a.m., something real, something measurable, that every major spiritual tradition has identified and given a name. And once you understand what it is, you will never experience that 3 a.m. awakening the same way again. Let's start with the oldest framework. Over 2,000 years ago, Chinese medicine practitioners mapped the flow of vital energy, qi, through the human body across a 24-hour cycle. This map is called the organ clock, and it is one of the foundational diagnostic tools of traditional Chinese medicine. It is documented in the Huangdi Neijing, the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon, one of the oldest medical texts in human history. The organ clock divides the day and night into 12 two-hour windows. During each window, qi flows most strongly through a specific organ system and its corresponding median. Each organ is paired with an emotion, a function, and a set of physical symptoms that tend to appear when that organ is out of balance. Here's the sequence that matters for our investigation. From 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., qi flows through the liver. The liver is responsible for detoxification, blood cleansing, and the smooth flow of energy throughout the body. And the emotion associated with liver is anger, frustration, resentment, rage that has been held inside rather than expressed. If you wake up between 1 and 3 a.m., Chinese medicine says your liver is overloaded, either from physical toxins like alcohol and processed food, or from emotional toxins like unresolved anger and suppressed frustration. From 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., qi shifts to the lungs. The lungs govern respiration, immune function, and the distribution of qi to the entire body. And the emotion associated with the lungs is grief, sadness, sorrow, loss that is settled deeply into the body. If you wake up in this window, Chinese medicine says your lungs are processing grief, either current loss or ancient sorrow that has never been fully released. This is important. The organ clock begins its daily cycle at 3 a.m. with the lungs. The lungs are the first organ activated when we are born. The first breath, and the organ clock treats 3 a.m. as the starting point of the entire energetic day. In the Chinese medical framework, 3 a.m. is the moment when the cycle of life renews itself. The body shifts from the deep internal work of the liver into the expansive, outward-facing energy of the lungs. It is a transition point, a threshold, and the body in its ancient intelligence wakes you up at thresholds. But the organ clock is only the first layer, because modern neuroscience has identified something happening at this exact same hour that the Chinese physicians described 2,000 years ago, and the neuroscience makes the picture even more interesting. Inside your brain, there is a structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN, located in the hypothalamus. It is your master circadian clock. It receives light signals from specialized cells in your retina and uses those signals to synchronize every biological rhythm in your body: sleep, wakefulness, hormone release, body temperature, immune function, digestion, cellular repair. The SCN orchestrates two hormones that operate in opposition to each other throughout the 24-hour cycle: melatonin and cortisol. Melatonin is the sleep hormone. It begins rising after sunset, peaks somewhere between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., and gradually declines through the rest of the night. Cortisol is the wakefulness hormone, the stress hormone, the alertness hormone. It follows the opposite pattern. It drops to its lowest levels during the early phases of sleep and then begins to rise, reaching its peak around 8 a.m. The morning spike is called the cortisol awakening response. Here's where the picture gets extraordinary. A study published in Frontiers in Neuroscience found that the cortisol awakening response follows a circadian rhythm that peaks at a phase corresponding to approximately 3:40 to 3:45 a.m. That is the moment when cortisol begins its most aggressive upward climb. That is the moment when your body shifts from repair mode to preparation for waking mode. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., you are experiencing the hormonal crossover. Melatonin is at its peak. Cortisol is beginning its ascent. Two opposing chemical signals are colliding inside your bloodstream simultaneously. Your body is receiving the instruction to stay asleep and the instruction to begin waking up at the same moment. There is another dimension to the neuroscience that matters here: sleep architecture. The structure of your sleep cycles throughout the night changes dramatically as the night progresses. In the first half of the night, your sleep is dominated by deep, slow wave sleep, delta wave activity. This is the phase of physical repair, growth hormone release, and cellular regeneration. Your brain is in its deepest, most unconscious state. But around 2 to 3 a.m., the architecture shifts. Deep sleep begins to recede, the REM sleep. The dreaming state starts taking over in longer and longer cycles. The first REM period of the night lasts only about 10 minutes. By the pre-dawn hours, REM cycles can last 45 minutes to an hour. Your brain becomes increasingly active. Dream content becomes more vivid, more emotionally complex, more narrative. The brain is doing something during these extended REM cycles that neuroscience is still struggling to fully explain. Consolidating memories, processing emotional material, making creative connections between disparate pieces of information, and generating experiences so vivid that the dreaming brain is physiologically indistinguishable from the waking brain in many respects. The 3 a.m. window sits at the precise inflection point where the architecture of sleep transitions from the deep unconscious into this heightened creative and emotional processing state. You are emerging from the depths and entering the shallows, and in those shallows, consciousness can surface. This collision creates a window of neurological instability. The brain is caught between two states, deep sleep and emerging wakefulness. And in that sliver of instability, consciousness does something unusual. It becomes aware of itself. You are asleep enough to be in the depths of the unconscious, yet alert enough for awareness to register what is happening. The Chinese organ clock identifies this as the renewal point of the entire energetic cycle. The neuroscience identifies it as the collision point between the two master hormones of the circadian system. And both frameworks arrive at the same conclusion. 3 a.m. is a threshold state, a liminal zone, a crack between worlds. But here's the question that neuroscience is unable to answer. If this is purely a hormonal event, why does it feel so different from waking up at any other time? Why is 3 a.m. wakefulness so sharp, so alert, so loaded with a quality of awareness that feels distinct from the grogginess of a 6 a.m. alarm? Why does it feel like you were pulled awake by something? To answer that question, we have to go deeper. We have to go where the science ends and something much older begins. Every major culture in human history has given a name to this hour, and every single one of them identified it as significant. In medieval European Christianity, the period between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. was called the witching hour. It was believed to be the time when the veil between the physical world and the spiritual world was thinnest. Monks in contemplative orders were required to wake for matins, prayers performed in the darkest hours of the night, precisely because the church understood that consciousness was uniquely receptive during this window. The prayers were placed at 3 a.m. deliberately because the contemplative tradition had discovered through centuries of practice that the mind in this hour is more permeable, more open, more available to the transcendent than at any other point in the 24-hour cycle. In Scandinavian folklore, the period between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. was called the hour of the wolf, the hour when the wolf sits outside your door waiting. It was the hour when the most people died, when the most children were born, and when the most nightmares occurred. The wolf was a symbol for the presence of something at the threshold, something that watched, something that waited, something that was always there but could only be perceived when the ordinary defenses of waking consciousness had fallen. In Hinduism, the period from approximately 3:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. is called Brahma Muhurta, the hour of Brahma, the creator. It is considered the single most auspicious time of the entire day for meditation, prayer, and spiritual practice. Hindu sages taught for thousands of years that the mind during Brahma Muhurta is sattvic, pure, clear, undisturbed by the agitations of the day. They recommended that seekers rise during this hour specifically because the veil between the individual self and the divine self is thinnest, and the effort required to make contact with deeper awareness is smallest. In Sufism, the pre-dawn hours are called the time of tahajjud, voluntary night prayer performed after midnight and before dawn. The Quran references this hour as a time when the heavens are particularly attentive to human supplication. Mystics of Islam taught that prayers offered during this window carry a different quality than prayers offered at any other time, a quality of directness, of immediacy, of being heard without interference. In the Christian mystical tradition, St. John of the Cross wrote about the dark night of the soul, a period of profound spiritual transformation that occurs in darkness, in the absence of consolation, in the stripping away of everything familiar. The dark night is often experienced most intensely in the literal dark night, the hours between midnight and dawn when the ego's defenses are lowest, and the soul is most exposed to the transformative action of the divine. These traditions span continents, millennia, and every major language group on Earth. They developed independently, they had no contact with each other in most cases, and they arrived at the identical conclusion: something happens at 3 a.m., something opens, becomes available, something that the waking daylight mind blocks, resists, or simply lacks the sensitivity to perceive. The mystics lacked cortisol assays and EEG machines, but they mapped the same territory. In my own experience, I find that when I'm up at that time, that I'm most creative, that I have access to more thoughts. It feels like something uniquely different is happening with my creative mind and my thought process during that time. I'd love for you to put in the comments how you feel at that particular time. To me, I get a second wind at that time. And then there's Tibet. In the Tibetan Buddhist and Bon traditions, there exists a practice called sleep yoga, yoga of the clear light. It is considered one of the most advanced and secret practices in the entire tradition. And it is built around a single, extraordinary claim that during the deepest phase of sleep, when the thinking mind has completely ceased, when the senses have fully withdrawn, when even the dream state has dissolved, there exists a luminous, boundless awareness that is the fundamental nature of mind itself. The Tibetans call it the clear light. It is the awareness that remains when everything else, thoughts, emotions, sensory experience, identity, ego, self, has been stripped away. It is in their framework the direct experience of what you actually are beneath every layer of conditioning, personality, and accumulated experience. Most people pass through this state every single night and remember nothing of it. The clear light appears in the transition between deep sleep and dreaming, and again in the transition between dreaming and waking. It flashes for a moment, a gap in the stream of mental activity, and then the mind fills the gap with content, dreams, thoughts, sensory awareness. The clear light is always there. We simply lack the training to recognize it when it appears. Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, one of the foremost teachers of these practices in the West, has written, "If we lose ourselves every night, what chance do we have to be aware when death comes? Look to your experience in dreams to know how you will fare in death. Look to your experience of sleep to discover whether or not you are truly awake." The goal of sleep yoga is to remain conscious during deep sleep, to maintain awareness through the dissolution of the thinking mind and into the clear light itself. This practice is taught alongside dream yoga, which uses lucid dreaming as a laboratory for recognizing the dreamlike nature of all experience. But sleep yoga goes further. It asks the practitioner to be aware during a state that most people consider to be the absolute absence of awareness. And here's the connection to your 3 a.m. awakening. The deepest phase of sleep, the phase where the light is clear and most accessible, typically occurs in the early morning hours between approximately 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. This is when delta wave activity is strongest, when REM cycles are beginning to lengthen and deepen, and when the transition between deep sleep and dreaming occurs most frequently. The Tibetan tradition teaches that the clear light is always broadcasting. It is always available. It is the ground luminosity of consciousness itself, and during that 3 a.m. window, when the hormonal crossover is creating neurological instability, when the organ clock is transitioning between liver and lungs, when the deepest sleep is giving way to the first long REM cycles of the night, the signal is strongest. You are waking up because the clear light is breaking through. Edgar Cayce, the most documented psychic in American history, gave over 14,000 readings during his lifetime, most of them while in a self-induced trance state. Many of these readings address the nature of sleep, dreams, and the activities of consciousness during the night. Cayce taught that sleep is an active state. The body rests, but consciousness continues to operate at levels that the waking mind is unable to access. During sleep, according to Cayce, the subconscious mind reviews the events of the day, processes unresolved emotional material, receives guidance from higher dimensions of awareness, and engages in creative problem solving that the conscious mind has been unable to accomplish during waking hours. He described the hours between midnight and dawn as the period when the subconscious is most active and most receptive. He said that impressions received during this window, dreams, visions, intuitions, sudden insights, carry a different quality than impressions received at other times. They are cleaner, less filtered, more direct. The noise of the waking mind has fully subsided, and the signal from the deeper self comes through with unusual clarity. Casey also taught that the dreaming mind has access to information that transcends the boundaries of space and time. That dreams can be precognitive, telepathic, and diagnostic. He encouraged his clients to pay close attention to dreams that occurred in the pre-dawn hours because these dreams were most likely to contain genuine guidance rather than mere processing of daily experience. In reading after reading, Casey described a pattern that his clients recognized immediately. The insights that arrive between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. carry a different weight. They feel more authoritative, more certain, more final. A solution to a problem that has been churning for weeks will suddenly appear, complete and obvious, as though it has been waiting for the right moment to present itself. A decision that felt impossible during waking hours will clarify in an instant. A creative idea that has been circling at the edge of awareness will land fully formed. The pre-dawn mind has access to a processing power that the daytime mind simply lacks, because the daytime mind is too busy managing the 10,000 details of ordinary life to hear the signal beneath the noise. This matches the research on insight and problem solving during sleep. Studies have consistently shown that the sleeping brain makes connections between disparate pieces of information that the waking brain fails to make. The famous stories of scientific breakthroughs that arrived in dreams, Kekulé discovering the ring structure of benzene, Mendeleev seeing the periodic table in a dream, Paul McCartney hearing the melody of Yesterday in his sleep, all share a common thread. The breakthrough came during the pre-dawn hours when the brain was in its most extended and vivid REM cycle, when the creative architecture of consciousness was operating at its peak. This aligns perfectly with what modern sleep research has confirmed. The longest and most vivid REM cycles of the night occur in the pre-dawn hours between approximately 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. The dreams you have in this window are more emotionally complex, more narrative, more symbolically dense, and more memorable than dreams earlier in the night. Your brain is doing its most sophisticated processing during exactly the window that every mystical tradition identifies as the most spiritually significant. And here's where all these threads converge into a single unified understanding. Neville Goddard taught that the most powerful state for reality creation is the state akin to sleep, the hypnagogic state, the borderland between waking and sleeping where consciousness is still present, but the filters of the analytical mind have dissolved. In this state, imagination becomes indistinguishable from reality. Suggestions planted in this state sink directly into the subconscious without resistance, without analysis, without the ego's interference. Neville instructed his students to use this state deliberately, to construct a vivid sensory scene of their desired outcome, and to dwell in it as they fall asleep, allowing the scene to become the last impression on the subconscious before it took over for the night. But here's what most students of Neville miss. The hypnagogic state occurs twice every night, once as you fall asleep, and once as you emerge from deep sleep in the pre-dawn hours. The 3 a.m. awakening is the second window. Most of Neville's teaching focused on the first window, the falling asleep state. He instructed students to use the last moments of consciousness before sleep to plant the seed of their desire. And that instruction is powerful. It works. Thousands of people in this community have used it successfully. But the 3 a.m. window may actually be far more powerful than the falling asleep window. Here's why. When you are falling asleep, you're moving from full waking consciousness toward the unconscious. You are descending. The analytical mind is still partially active. It is releasing its grip gradually, reluctantly. There is a transitional period where doubt, analysis, and the critic's voice can still interfere with the impressions you are trying to plant. At 3 a.m., the direction is reversed. You are emerging from the deepest unconscious toward awaking. The analytical mind has been completely offline for hours. There's no residual shatter to overcome. The subconscious is wide open, freshly primed by hours of delta wave processing, cleared of the accumulated noise of the previous day. The impression you plant in this state goes deeper, lands cleaner, and meets less resistant than anything you could plant while falling asleep. This is the window that Neville described, but that most students overlook because they associate his technique exclusively with bedtime practice. The 3 a.m. window is the master key. When you wake at 3 a.m., you are emerging from the deepest phase of sleep into a state that is neurologically, hormonally, and psychologically identical to the hypnagogic state Neville described. The analytical mind has been offline for hours. The subconscious is wide open. The filters are down. The clear light in the Tibetan framework is still close. Its luminosity is still close, still uncovered by the noise of the waking mind. This is why the 3 a.m. awakening feels so different from waking up to an alarm. You're entering the most creatively powerful state a human being can occupy, and you are entering it naturally, spontaneously, without effort. Your body is handing you the keys to the most powerful creative technology you possess. And most people respond by checking their phone, worrying about work, or staring at the ceiling in frustration. So here's the picture that emerges when you lay all these frameworks on top of each other. Chinese medicine says 3 a.m. is the renewal point of the energetic cycle, the transition from deep internal processing to the first breath of the new day. The emotion being processed is grief, followed by an expansion of the lungs which govern the distribution of life force to the entire body. Neuroscience says 3 a.m. is the hormonal crossover, the collision between peak melatonin and rising cortisol, creating a window of neurological instability where consciousness becomes aware of itself between two opposing states. Every major contemplative tradition on Earth says 3 a.m. is the thinnest point in the veil, the hour when the mind is most open, most receptive, most available to the transcendent. Monks pray here, yogis meditate here, mystics have their visions here. The Tibetans identified the clear light of fundamental awareness as most accessible during the exact window. Edgar Cayce said the pre-dawn hours are when the subconscious is most active and most receptive to guidance from beyond the ordinary mind. Neville Goddard said the state akin to sleep, the exact neurological state you enter at 3 a.m., is the most powerful creative state in human experience. Every single one of these frameworks, ancient Chinese, modern Western neuroscience, Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi, Christian mystic, American psychic, Barbadian teacher, agrees on one thing: something happens at 3 a.m. that is profoundly different from anything that happens during the rest of the 24-hour cycle. And the question that none of the sleep articles answer, the question that the medical establishment sidesteps entirely, is this: why does it happen to you? Because plenty of people sleep straight through to their alarm. They never wake up at 3 a.m. They never experience that sharp, sudden, total alertness in the middle of the night. The hormonal crossover happens in their bodies too, but it produces no conscious experience. They pass through the window and remember nothing. You are different. You wake up. Something pulls you across the threshold from deep sleep into awareness. Something interrupts the default program. Something overrides the melatonin and says, pay attention. Here's what I believe is happening, and it is built on everything we have covered in this episode. You're waking up at 3 a.m. because your consciousness is expanding. Your sensitivity is increasing. The filters that normally keep you asleep through the threshold are thinning. You are beginning to hear a signal that has always been broadcasting, but that your previous level of awareness was unable to detect. Think about it this way: a radio is always surrounded by signals, FM signals, AM signals, shortwave signals, satellite signals. They're all passing through the body constantly. You only hear them when you tune the receiver to the correct frequency and turn up the volume. The signal was always there. The difference is in the receiver. Your receiver is becoming more sensitive. The reasons may vary: spiritual practice, emotional growth, a life event that cracked you open, grief that deepened your capacity for awareness. or simply the natural progression of consciousness that is ready for its next stage of development. But the result is the same. You are picking up a signal that you previously slept through. The signal is coming from a deeper self, the part of you that exists beneath the personality, beneath the ego, beneath the accumulated habits and beliefs and fears that make up your waking identity. The Tibetans call it the clear light. Neville called it the I am. Casey called it the superconscious. The Hindu tradition calls it Atman, the divine self within. It has always been there. It has always been broadcasting, and you are waking up at 3 a.m. because you are finally developing the capacity to receive the broadcast. So the next time you find yourself lying in bed at 3 a.m. with your eyes wide open, I want you to try something. Instead of reaching for your phone, instead of running through your to-do list or tightening into anxiety about lost sleep, recognize what's happening. You have entered the most powerful state of consciousness available to a human being. The filters are down, the subconscious is open, the hormonal environment is uniquely balanced between rest and readiness. Every tradition on earth has identified this exact moment as sacred. Here's what you do. Stay in bed. Stay still. Keep your eyes closed or softly focused. Allow your body to remain in the posture of sleep even as your awareness brightens. You are in the state akin to sleep. You're in the hypnagogic zone. You are in the liminal space between worlds. This is where imagination becomes creative power. Choose a scene. A single, specific scene that represents the fulfillment of something you deeply desire. A conversation, a moment, a place, a feeling. Make it vivid. Make it sensory. Hear the sounds. Feel the textures. Notice the temperature. Let the scene build itself in the quiet darkness behind your closed eyes. And then inhabit it. Be there. Be in the scene. Let it become as real as the bed you are lying in. Let your body respond to it. Let your breathing change. Let the emotion of the scene, gratitude, joy, relief, satisfaction, love, fill your chest and spread through your body. Hold it. Stay with it. Refuse to chase it with analysis. Refuse to interrogate it with questions. Simply dwell in it the way you dwell in a warm bath, letting it surround you, letting it soak into your skin, letting your entire nervous system marinate in the feeling of the fulfilled desire. If your mind wanders, and it will because the analytical mind is beginning to stir as cortisol rises, gently return to the scene. Bring back one sensory detail, a sound, a texture, the warmth of someone's hand. That single detail will pull you back into the full scene like a thread pulling a tapestry. And if you fall back asleep while holding the scene, even better. You've just planted the most powerful seed possible in the most fertile soil your consciousness has to offer. The subconscious will take that seed and begin building the bridge between where you are and where the scene lives. It will work on it through the remaining hours of sleep. It will continue working on it through the next day, and the signs, synchronicities, and movements of reality that follow in the coming days and weeks will confirm that the 3 a.m. window did exactly what every mystical tradition has always said it would do. There's another practice for those who find visualization difficult. Simply lie still and ask a question. One question, something you've been struggling with, something you need guidance on, something you've been unable to resolve through waking analysis. Ask the question with sincerity, then release it. Let it float into the darkness of the room like a paper lantern released into the sky, and then pay attention. The answer may come as a sudden knowing. It may come as a dream in the remaining hours of sleep. It may come as a flash of insight the following morning. The 3 a.m. window is a direct line to the intelligence that runs beneath your conscious mind, and that intelligence has been waiting for you to ask. This is the technique Neville taught. This is the state the Tibetans identified as the clear light's closest accessible frequency. This is the window that every contemplative tradition in history has used for its deepest practice. You've been waking up at 3 a.m. because your deeper self has been trying to hand you this window. It has been interrupting your sleep because it knows you are ready to use it. It has been pulling you across the threshold because the time has come for you to stop sleeping through the most important hour of your day. The 3 a.m. frequency is real. The signal is real, and you're already receiving it. The only thing left to do is respond. 2,000 years ago, Chinese physicians mapped the flow of vital energy through the body and identified 3 a.m. as the point where the entire cycle begins again. They said this is the threshold of renewal. Modern neuroscience has confirmed that the cortisol awakening response peaks at 3:40 a.m., creating a hormonal collision that produces a unique window of neurological instability between sleep and wakefulness. The monks of medieval Europe placed their deepest prayers at this hour. The yogis of India called it the hour of the Creator. The Sufis called it the time when heaven is most attentive. The Tibetans identified it as the moment when the clear light of fundamental awareness is closest to the surface of the sleeping mind. Neville Goddard taught that the state you enter at this hour is the most powerful creative state in human experience. And you, lying in your bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering why you're awake again, have been handed the keys to something extraordinary. You've been given a window that monks spend years of discipline to access. You've been given a state that mystics cross continents to learn how to enter. You've been given, free of charge every single night, the single most powerful moment of your 24-hour cycle. Something is trying to reach you at 3 a.m. Something's trying to teach you at 3 a.m. Something is trying to show you that the version of you that lies awake in frustration and the version of you that could use this hour to reshape reality from the inside out are separated by nothing more than a choice. I want you to consider the possibility that your sleep disruption is an upgrade, that the awakening you've been treating as a problem is actually a promotion, that your nervous system is developing a sensitivity to a frequency that has always been there, but you are only now becoming attuned to. The monks trained for years to access this state. You are being handed it every night without asking. The only reasonable response is to use it. And here's the final thought I want to leave it with you. If you are someone who wakes at 3 a.m., you are already on the threshold, already sensitive enough, aware enough, open enough for the signal to pull you across the boundary of sleep. That sensitivity is a gift. It means your consciousness is expanding beyond the default settings that keep most people unconscious through the most powerful hour of the cycle. You're waking up at 3 a.m. because you are waking up. In every sense of the word, the small awakening in the dark room is a reflection of the larger awakening happening inside your consciousness. They are the same event operating at different scales. The frequency is broadcasting. The window is open. The only question is what you do when your eyes open in the dark. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.